The latest Commonwealth modelling shows that states like New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland would make hundreds of millions of dollars in extra GST revenue if vapes were legalised and taxed. New South Wales would rake in the most at more than $836 million over the next 4 years. It comes after a Redbridge poll revealed overwhelming support for the regulation of vapes, as opposed to the prescription-based model being implemented by the federal government, and that's amongst people who voted for Labor at the 2022 election. Joining me live is Nationals leader David Littleproud. David, thanks for joining us. New South Wales has been complaining a lot about a lack of GST distribution. Is this a way it can improve its budget's bottom line?
Well, we find all the states do around wanting more money, but I think it's not just the GST, it's the excise. Only about 8% of Australians who vape at the moment have a prescription. It's a prohibition model that hasn't worked, and we're the ones that put that in place when we were in government, and we got it wrong. Greg Hunt put this in place, and I actually supported it. I don't contest the science around both vapes and nicotine and cigarettes being bad for you, but where we need to go is a regulatory model that has worked in protecting particularly children and making sure that we protect the community from these organised crime gangs who are collecting effectively the GST and the excise that Australian taxpayers should, that could go to things like education on the risks of vaping and having cigarettes, as well as regional health in particular. That's what the Nationals have had a long-held position. We hope that the rest of the Parliament will come with us. But while the government has good intentions and great intent, we want to slowly get rid of this as quickly as we can. But the reality is that prohibition hasn't worked, and we need to look at what has worked. And when we did regulate cigarettes through point of sale to 18 years plus, through licensed premises, then what happened is, as well as controlling the ingredients and the packaging, we saw an 80% reduction in juvenile use of cigarettes. And then you collect that GST, you collect that excise, and you can put that back into society in a productive way. That's the policy the Nationals believe in. That's the one that we'll prosecute, and hopefully the other parties here in Canberra will come with us.
But regulating vapes does not guarantee that you will not see a thriving black market, though. Look at cigarettes right now. Tax revenue from tobacco is set to fall by $12.5 billion over 5 years from falling excise, and that's largely due to a deluge of illegally imported cigarettes that are openly on sale across the country for some cases as little as $15 a packet. The drops in revenue far outweigh drops from smoking numbers as well. So my point is, regulation doesn't necessarily help that black market situation.
No, but two things there. One, you can use some of that excise into the policing of it and that GST into the policing of it, and particularly at the borders in trying to cut down that illicit tobacco and illicit vapes. And then secondly, it makes it easier for policing on the streets of our state agencies. I mean, when we've got shortages in some states, in my home state, Queensland Police Force are about 4,000 police short. Queensland government's lost control of the streets. I hardly think the Queensland Police Force are worrying about enforcing mandatory vape laws and prohibition laws with vaping. Whereas if you simplify the laws to a regulation that's been seen before, then it makes it easier for police in their general policing duties to help track down where they've come from when you see someone that's under 18 vaping. This is the challenge, is that we've made it too complicated. We've gone a prohibition model. And if you reinvest into that policing, then you will actually also increase the GST and increase the excise as well. So it's about breaking this business model, but understand and not being naive. There is always people in society who try to cut corners, and they'll continue to do that. It's trying to minimise it and give a return back to the Australian taxpayer through better health outcomes and through better education outcomes.
Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles is about to meet students and teachers at Mount Scopus College in Victoria after a disgusting anti-Semitic slogan was spray painted on the wall of the school. Attorney General Mark Dreyfus is drafting new hate speech laws that will impose criminal penalties for serious instances of vilification based on a person's race, sexuality, gender, disability or religion. Do you support, in principle, an enhancement of federal protections for minority groups?
Well, there already are laws in place that have criminal aspects to it, and I think the government needs to articulate why they haven't been utilised. For many of these abhorrent cases that we've seen and some of the chants that we've seen, And I think it's important for the government to articulate why they aren't satisfactory and why they haven't been used. But if they do believe that there needs to be a strengthening of those, then we'll work through the details. But obviously reticent to give carte blanche support to Mark Dreyfus without seeing those details. It is an intricate part of law. And we've got to ask a question why the current laws haven't been used. And if they can articulate that, well, that's fine. We'll go with open minds. But it's important we see the detail around getting the balance right of protecting free speech, but making sure that comes with responsibility and respect. But what will solve a lot of this is leadership by the Prime Minister and all our political leaders in calling this out and calling out the abhorrent behaviour that in modern Australia, these sort of comments and this sort of graffiti is unacceptable, and that it's now time for religious leaders, particularly Islamic leaders, to stand up and to call this out strongly. All the imams should be out there standing shoulder to shoulder with the Jewish community and showing solidarity with them, that no matter what the differences are on the Middle East, it should stay there. That hate doesn't belong in Australia. We've proven that everyone can live together in this country, but with that comes responsibility and leadership, and it's from the Prime Minister and everyone else. And if people aren't prepared to do that, then the Prime Minister's got to call them out. But we are getting to a tipping point where I think Australians are feeling unsafe, and it shouldn't matter what their religion is, but if they're feeling unsafe in this country, it takes political leadership to stand up and to say enough's enough, and we're going to stop this, and we're going to lead by example from political leaders, religious leaders, right the way through to civic leaders.
We'll leave it there. David Littleproud, thanks for your time.